3 months into redesigning this 100-year-old mansion, and suddenly we didn't know if the town would let it happen.
Whether you're here for or against, your being here shows me one thing, and that's that you care.
We've been doing everything we can to preserve the heritage of the home.
Our commitment to preserving this 1906 Tudor mansion is at the heart of this project.
But the fact remains, the house has always been a private residence, and now we want it to become something more.
What we came up with was to convert this property into a venue. It'll offer a framed view of the house and grounds, and it'll be the ideal location for conferences, celebrations, lectures, rehearsal dinners, and so forth.
In order to host large gatherings, we needed the board to grant a zoning variance, and there was no guarantee we would get it.
I wouldn't have even bought the property without that variance and without that planning. I think it shows a lack of forethought. I think it was a major mistake.
There's nothing better than a little small-town democracy. CJ and I met before the meeting to go over what we had prepared.
As you can see, we are thoughtfully adding details back into the kitchen area, including a coppered ceiling. The floor plans have largely stayed exactly the same as the original footprint. We've just modified the kitchen and bathrooms.
In an attempt to alleviate these issues at the outset, we will set our capacity for conservatory functions at 100 people.
Designers don't always attend zoning meetings, but this project is special.
I do. Okay. And I'd like to start by saying that the last time I was in front of a variance board was in Denver, Colorado, to apply for a zoning variance to get a marijuana license, and less people were at that meeting than there are at this meeting. Because in a town the size of ours, what affects one neighborhood affects the entire population. I've called Titusville home for 43 of my 49 years. I spent many years exploring the backyards that make up the neighborhood we're now discussing. I knew every inch of Mr. Henney's yard, the Zayners, the Von Tackies, Mrs. Peterson's, the McKinneys, the Stevensons, Presbyterian home, and every acre all the way up to Big Rocks. Those magical places literally formed the backdrop of my childhood. This neighborhood is very special to me. I'm not an outsider swooping in to spoil, alter, or exploit this place that we all call home. I take pride in my hometown. To give you all a better idea of what we have in mind, I've asked Titusville's own Molly McGill-Lucas to present our vision.
We met Molly this past July after my wife Debbie read an article in the Alumni News outlining Molly's significant accomplishments in her chosen field of interior design.
Debbie thought it would be a good idea to have a Titusville native help us in this project.
I couldn't agree more. So we reached out to Molly, whose response was, OMG, I love that house. I'll be home this weekend and we can get started. We intend for this beautiful house to be a love letter to Titusville.
I almost said that in mine. If you've been able to watch our YouTube videos highlighting CJ's passion, you'd immediately see that this is a project that hits close to home. Not just for CJ, but for this community as a whole.
The history of this city is an amazing one. We all know it. Birthplace of the oil industry, valley that changed the world. One of the first electrified cities.
I was captivated by the grandeur of the town's storied past, evident in the magnificent mansions that have lined our streets. Yet, there was also sadness.
So much of it has been lost. The Flatiron Building, one of the first of its kind in the country. The original oil exchange building, the first of its kind in the world. The Penn Theater, where John Wilkes Booth performed. And of course, our beloved Colonel Drake Hotel, brought down to make room for a CVS.
Sorry, keep going.
Which then put our favorite drugstore, Thompson's, out of business.
Yeah, and I would go and get milkshakes with my mom at the counter.
They make good milk.
Yeah, we go there in the hospital, and neither of those
Yeah.
places exist anymore.
How is it that we lost such remarkable structures?
What could have been going through the minds of the people in whose care those buildings resided? Why were they not saved?
What was the hardship that led to their destruction? The answer is wickedly simple.
Cost. These landmark architectural designs became cost prohibitive to maintain and operate.
So many of our once stunning homes had been demolished, subdivided, or stripped of their original character, often out of necessity, simply to make them easier to maintain.
So what can we do with what we have left? Well, I have an idea. My father tasked me with one job when I came back in 1999 to work for him. He told me, your job is to create jobs and make sure that those people feel secure and can put food on the table for their families. If you can do that and not lose money, that is success. If you can make money doing it, that's a blessing. And when we are successful, we give it away. We share it by starting new businesses to create new jobs. We share it as donations to local organizations that give back to the community. But our new idea is to invest our success in this community and build these assets into something that ultimately and continuously gives back to the town. And we intend to turn 623 North Perry Street into a bed and breakfast called The Grove. The Grove will be a cultural representation of the history of Titusville. We hope to create a property that harkens back to what used to be. The residence will be designed in such a way that visitors will feel like they stepped into the 1920s when the Fleming family just finished their $1 million renovation.
Every step of the restoration process has been carried out with meticulous care, ensuring we respect and honor the original details and character that make this home so special. The ornate woodworking will remain untouched, except for the pieces that have already been painted. We'll repaint those. While the old kitchen felt a little out of place with the rest of the home, the new kitchen will have all of the bells and whistles. This kitchen is being designed to look as though it's always been a part of this home. As you can see here, if you have your binoculars, we are thoughtfully adding details back into the kitchen area, such as a coppered ceiling. We want the back rooms to completely transport guests back into the glamour of the 1920s. We'll achieve this with brass and marble pedestal sinks, intricate water jet mosaic tiles, and antique-inspired lighting.
This property covers almost 4 acres, stretching from Perry Street to the hospital properties on Monroe Street. Now, there's currently a swimming pool in the backyard. We're looking to get rid of that pool and replace it with a building that we would call the conservatory, a venue, an incubator for the community, a venue that will not only bring in outside dollars to the town, but it'll also provide opportunities to partner with existing businesses and educational institutions in Titusville. And our conservatory will be built in keeping with the historical character of the house and neighborhood, and it'll offer a framed view of the house and grounds, and it'll be the ideal location for conferences, celebrations, lectures, rehearsal dinners, and so forth.
By attracting visitors who come to celebrate special events, we'll see a ripple effect throughout local businesses. These guests will dine in at our local restaurants, book overnight stays in the home and nearby accommodations, and explore everything Titusville has to offer, boosting our local economy.
And we also hope to work with the University of Pittsburgh in Titusville campus and the Titusville High School Work-Study Program to develop hospitality courses where students can learn in an actual operating environment. In this way, we hope to develop some local entrepreneurs who could then develop their own businesses in Titusville and surrounding areas.
I, as a close neighbor, think that the way that he's going about this is, he has an excellent plan. He cares about the people of the community. I had the opportunity myself, as well as I think some other neighbors, to go over and tour the property and see what they're doing over there. And I would just wholeheartedly recommend that the board give this variance.
So my concern is if there's a wedding there, and you got a couple of drunk, God forbid, wedding goers that leave the venue, didn't park in his designated parking spots. My grandchildren are out front playing in my yard, and they engage them. It's not gonna end well for somebody. If we're sitting on our front porch on a Friday night, I can hear the Rockets score a touchdown.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I do. And I understand the noise concern. I really do.
I know.
How long have you?
But excuse me, if you
I'm
were,
sorry, what?
How long have you?
what
lived-
stop?
I've lived there for 40 years.
I was just curious if that's where was your experience with the Bromleys, and so that's where it's coming from. Because
No.
we've already had this venue.
The Bromleys, their wedding venues, I don't think were very big, didn't hear them. Once in a while we would hear them, but
Well, you're bringing up concerns, but you've lived there through this.
I'm concerned because I am in my 60s and I like my peace and quiet.
yeah, just because you don't hear it, don't you
Oh, I
hear
hear it all
something
the
doesn't
time.
mean
I hear it.
we
But,
don't.
but one at a time. He can only take out
Sorry.
one person at a time.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to cause any, I'm just,
Well, you are.
okay.
I understand.
So anyways, CJ, look,
Yes.
you know, I've known you all my life. I'm just saying, I just have noise and safety concerns.
We're certainly not oblivious to concerns that arise in considering a project of this magnitude. Chief among these concerns being parking, privacy, and noise. In an attempt to alleviate these issues at the outset, we would set our capacity for conservatory functions at 100 people. As for noise and privacy concerns, we've engaged Aristotle Landscape Architect out of Cleveland. They've been tasked with creating a plan to direct sound away from the neighboring properties. These measures will create a noise and privacy screen far superior to what exists there now.
This is not a venue for wild parties, but rather a sophisticated high-end event space designed to maintain the serenity and prestige of the neighborhood. Our desired clientele are respectful, and they will truly appreciate the mansion's beauty and rich history.
And to further alleviate noise concerns, we plan to end all conservatory functions by 10 p.m.
So I think in some ways, it will be a safer setup than if it fell in the hands of someone that wasn't from here and didn't appreciate what we have.
And as far as safety concerns, people coming out of there, man, I wish I had a better answer for you.
No, I know.
And there will be staff at the events, and if things, they'll be trained, that if things start to escalate in any way whatsoever, it's over.
I wouldn't have even bought the property without that variance and without that planning. I think it shows a lack of forethought. I think it was a major mistake. It surprises me the degree of naivety that you have demonstrated in all of this. And I have questions about property values. The way this old world works, people will park pretty much wherever they want to park. I don't know how you're going to tell them before they park on North Perry Street.
There would have to be, you would think, at least 50 parking spots, because people usually drive in pairs, not in threes, right?
That's right. That's why.
And how many
50.
parking spots are you gonna have?
50.
You are gonna have 50?
Yes.
Okay.
According to our city ordinance, we're required to have one parking space for every 3.5 people of capacity. This means we need, at most, 29 parking spaces. This area would fit 15 cars. This area would fit 10 cars. And this area back here to the west could fit another 20 cars.
Ms. Stevenson, how long have you lived in your current home?
It'll be 45 years in Thanksgiving.
Good. I was hoping you'd say something like that.
When my mother-in-law grew up in it, she told me in the wintertime, they had gas bills of $600. That's in the 1930s. So you can imagine what it would be today. It's a huge house. I'm for it. I think we need to progress Titusville and promote Titusville, and it would bring business into Titusville.
So we've only been here 3 years. I grew up in Northern Virginia. Wineries, breweries, lots of money. I lived in a house, I owned a house for 12 years, and I knew the name of my neighbor, but never met my neighbor before. I know more people in Titusville than I do in probably the town I grew up in Northern Virginia. And we support this. I just think it's good for the town, good for the city.
You know, I heard lots of different angles of this and everything, and quite honestly, I bounced back and forth a little bit on it. Once I sat down with CJ and Debbie, I came away feeling very comfortable. You know, I'm old enough to remember that in Titusville, if you walked downtown when I was a little kid, there was a sea of people coming at you. You had to navigate around these people. I mean, the town was vibrant. We would go on these summer vacations, and they were kind of like Civil War trips. It ended up being a town called Berlin, Maryland. So we went in a cute town. I mean, it was just like a postcard type of thing. He told us what happened in that town was they gathered up some friends. It was 10 people. And these 10 people dedicated themselves that they were going to fix this place up. They tore the pharmacy off, went in and brought it back to what it was. They got to call them the 10 Fools.
10 fools?
The 10 Fools. They were the ones that pulled their money together, and it ended up had to be more, so they had to keep, you know.
That's where the fools came from.
Yeah. And it spurred the rest of the town to do this. We got, I don't know how many fools we got. One. You know, there's lots of guys around here that have really dug deep in their pockets to kind of bring this town back. That's the kind of guy you're talking to.
Recent revitalization efforts have shown that Titusville is just as resilient as ever, determined to become a true destination once again. Titusville is slowly transforming from a drive-through town into a dine-in town. People want to stay here. It's inspiring to have someone like CJ who is dedicated to investing in and restoring this property. This is exactly the kind of revitalization that Titusville needs. The house will no longer be hidden behind a closed front door. Instead, we're opening it up to the community, ready to share this remarkable gem.
So I'd like to make a motion that we vote regarding the assembly.
The vote was unanimous.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Lake?
Yes.
Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Most kids grow up in Titusville and they can't wait to get out. What I hope to do, along with others like Bob Joyce, Nat Licht, Aaron Armstrong, Joe Thompson, is transform Titusville, one project at a time, into a place those kids want to call home. So thank you again to the board for your time. I'm sorry that this took so long, but I thought that everyone deserved a full and complete explanation of what we intend to do. Thank you all again for showing up and for showing interest.